Ready and action.
I know what you're thinking. How the heck does a 52-year-old, over-the-hill milkshake machine salesman build a fast food empire with 1,600 restaurants and an annual revenue of $700 million? One word: persistence.
I think it's an interesting story, and to know the ins and outs of that is really fascinating.
McDonald's, for me at least, is my childhood.
It's just had reverberations on how we eat and where we eat and who we eat with.
It's just a good story of an American, Ray Kroc, and America, really.
11 years ago, I heard a song by Mark Knopfler called Boom Like That, and it was about Ray Kroc. And it made me start reading books about Ray Kroc and the origin of McDonald's. And I finally found the McDonald's family. And the grandson of Dick McDonald called me and said, "We've been waiting 50 years for someone to call us and tell this story. No reporter, no one has ever come to find us." They were very eager and very grateful to be able to tell their side of the story. And we had a few writers pitch on it from the book. And Rob Siegel came in and he's like, "This is what the story should be. It should be from this point of view." And we just loved his take. And once we had a script from Rob, it really kind of took off from there.
Post-World War II, the country was exploding. It was just this rock and roll and car culture and youth culture and drive-ins. When the movie begins, you have this man who is completely a man out of time. It's an Elvis Presley world, and he's kind of a Bing Crosby man.
When we pick him up, he's not doing great. He's on a little bit of a downward slope.
We got an order, 6 mixers.
He thinks there's a mistake because the order is larger than he had seen before.
You know what? I think that was a mistake.
Well, that's what I figured. I mean, what kind of drive-in could make 30 milkshakes at a time?
Better make it 8. What's that out?
So he goes out to investigate it and essentially is mind blown, and he sees the future.
Sound speed. B marker. And action.
What are you doing? There's time to lean, there's time to clean. Let's go.
They didn't just create fast food as we know it, they had to invent all the things that we take for granted that didn't exist back then. So one of the things they did was they created a little machine, like a flour sifter looking kind of thing, that they would just push a button and the right amount of ketchup would drop right onto the bun every time.
Now, where'd you get those?
We made them.
Made them.
Yeah, custom built. Full kitchen is.
What is that?
The Golden Arches. It's a way to make the place stand out.
Huh. He saw the visual, he visually saw the arches and the colors and saw way beyond that and saw what it could be.
There should be McDonald's everywhere. Franchise the damn thing.
Mr. Kroc.
Franchise, franchise, franchise. Ray's about as driven a guy as you'll ever meet.
What you ought to be doing is owning the land upon which that burger is cooked. You're not in the burger business. You're in the real estate business. It's really a magnificent script. It shows you the excitement that carries him into this being a corporation and the compromises he makes along the way.
When I read Rob Siegel's script, I was pulling actively for Ray Kroc at the start of it, and then toward the end was at best ambivalent about his approach to business. And so I thought that's fascinating. I'd never read a script like that before, where is he a hero? Is he a villain? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy?
Franchise Realty Corporation.
It's its own separate company, which puts it outside your purview.
There's a wolf in the hen house. We let him in.
The beauty of the movie is that we're left to decide for ourselves whether or not Ray Kroc was a success. Obviously, he was financially successful. Obviously, he was a dominant figure in American culture and a dominant figure in American business. But the question is that a good thing?
It leaves the final judgment open to the interpretation of the audience. How much is your integrity worth?
I think it's a great American story. It's about the small town, small business values that built a great restaurant, and then it's also about the ruthless Wall Street level ambition that made it into this giant corporation and the battle between them and the cost of that.
You have a contract.
Contracts are like hearts. They're made to be broken. It's the quintessential American story in terms of the free enterprise system and capitalism and bootstrap entrepreneurial drive.
Ready and action.
Well, the first time I heard about this and started reading the script, I thought, why has no one told the story before? This is a classic American story.
The first day with Michael Keaton playing Ray Kroc, he was just so locked in that it was amazing to watch. I'd forget to yell cut. I just wanted to watch him keep going.
As long as I can remember going to movies, Michael Keaton's been in them.
You know, with like Night Shift and Mr. Mom.
I've been a fan of his since Beetlejuice.
Pacific Heights, Clean and Sober.
my life.
Batman. He's such a phenomenal talent. I mean, he did a movie called Multiplicity where he played 8 characters that I love. And to have him playing Ray Kroc, you know, right on the heels of his Golden Globe and all the other accolades he got for Birdman is really magical.
It's been pretty ridiculous getting to work with him. It makes a pretty bad actor out of me because in my scenes I keep thinking, this is Michael Keaton, and he's looking right at me, and he's amazing, and he's talking, oh, it's my line. Sorry, guys,
When I saw this place, and I saw that line, and I saw your operation, and I tasted your product, I knew what needed to happen.
Mr. Kroc.
Franchise, franchise, franchise.
He has such a passion for the interior life of a character, and to see him working around inside the character, and then there'll be this moment where the clouds clear, and then you go, oh my God, that's Ray Kroc now.
I'm looking for scrapper, hustler, guys who are willing to roll up their sleeves. People with a little drive. They got a little fire in the belly.
Got a little chutzpah.
That's really exciting.
The sky's the limit. Sky's the limit.
He's so willing to try lots of different things. Doesn't play it safe.
There's gold to be had at the end of those golden arches. Golden arches.
Golden arches.
He's completely fearless about outcome. He wants to be Ray Kroc. He doesn't need him to be liked or disliked. You know, he's interested in telling the truth.
This is a really compelling story.
Hi, welcome to McDonald's. May I take your order?
What McDonald's started was a cultural change. In the scene when I walk up and get the little bag.
Here you are. What's this? Your food.
He's confused about what to do with this food in the bag, and he asks,
Where do I eat it?
and the kid looks at him and says,
In your car? At the park?
when I was in the scene about the third take, and I knew the scene, I'd read the script, we had rehearsed, I'd already shot a couple, it starts to really sink in on me, Michael, that this changed everything. This changed everything.
It's very cool how he is able to walk this line of bringing himself to a role, but also transforming. He's sort of Michael Keaton, but he's sort of this other guy, and I think a really good actor is able to do that, to bring that core of themselves into a role that's totally different from them.
You have a contract.
Contracts are like hearts. They're made to be broken.
John Carroll Lynch and I keep saying after takes, that's how you become a movie star, is you act like that. Two cameras, hey Mark. Me. All right, here we go. Ready and action.
How is everything?
This might be the best hamburger I've ever had in my life.
Well, we aim to please. McDonald. Burger crossing.
Burger crossing. Burger crossing. Burger crossing.
How the heck did you come up with this?
Oh, I didn't. We did. Dick McDonald, my brother.
I played Dick McDonald, one of the two brothers that invented McDonald's, and they're sort of the Henry Ford of fast food.
The fries. What about them?
They're 5% too crisp.
Oh, they're perfect.
I think we should drop to 2 minutes, 50 seconds.
Wasn't that what we were at before?
400, not 375. Higher temp, shorter cook.
I think they're spot on.
Excuse me, may I?
None of my beeswax, but I'm with the big fella here. I love them. Golden brown on the outside, fluffy white inside. And they're not too oily, salty, crunchy.
Mac and Dick McDonald stumbled onto a new system to fix the ills of the drive-in business, essentially, which is what they were in when they started.
There you are.
John Carroll Lynch plays my brother Mac, and he's really gregarious, and he's kind of the people person.
Now, where'd you get those?
We made them.
Made them.
Yeah, custom built. Full kitchen is.
And Dick was the idea man.
We wanted something different, and that's when my brother here comes up with one of his brilliant ideas. Tell him, Dick.
Order's ready in 30 seconds, not 30 minutes.
Sink on the right, extruder on the left.
My grandfather was that guy who sat there and thought about things and how can we make it better?
And then rip your orange.
How can we do it faster? How can we make things move more effectively? And he did it.
Use your lazy Susan.
People take for granted all the things that they originated. Like, back then, there was no such thing as eating food from paper.
What's this? Your food.
Imagine seeing it for the first time. It was all disposable. Everything was wrapped in paper and it was out in front of you in 30 seconds. That whole concept was started by the McDonald's brothers.
The McDonald's brothers are played by Nick Offerman and John Carroll Lynch, these guys are so good in this movie, so solid and really entertaining.
And action!
McDonald's. 2 words, powdered milkshake. I'm telling you, it's a fraction of the cost of ice cream and requires no refrigeration.
Ray, we have no interest in a milkshake that contains no milk.
Nick Offerman is just so versatile. I mean, you've seen him do comedy, you've seen him be funny, but he's actually a great dramatic actor.
It's called a milkshake, Ray. Real milk. Now and forever.
I understand.
It's a great privilege to work with John Carroll Lynch, a great American stage actor. And I feel like I have a lot in common with him, but at a 35% level.
We want you out of this company, Ray.
Mac, how do you propose you do that?
We will sue you, whatever it takes.
And you'd probably win. But you can't afford to sue me.
I'd bury you in court costs alone. John Carroll Lynch, he's just one of those handful of actors. When he's in a scene in a movie, that scene's gonna work regardless. I mean, he's the guy you want in your lineup. He's as solid as you get.
How can we be almost out of capital?
Did you mortgage our home?
This is a really compelling story. I want to renegotiate my lousy deal.
I can't.
Can't or won't?
Ray.
What?
No!
God damn it! What McDonald's started was a cultural change. I want to take the future. I want to win. Now, the more I thought about it, it starts to really sink in on me, Michael.
McDonald's can be the new American church.
This changed everything. This changed everything.
That glorious name, McDonald's. I had to have it.
You don't have it.
You sure about that?
So that's our story.
Two cameras, big sticks, 8. Hey, marker.
I remember the first time I saw that name stretched across your stand out there. It was love at first sight. I knew right then and there I had to have it.
I remember the McDonald's that we see in this movie that no longer exists almost anywhere, including the chef that's shaped like a hamburger, you know? I mean, I remember seeing that on the signs.
The art department's work on this film, and along with the costumes, has been astonishing, you know, and it allows you to sort of travel in time where you look around and any direction you look, with the exception of the camera, is like you've stepped into a Norman Rockwell painting.
When Michael Keaton first walked on this set, he thought we had found an old McDonald's and refurbished it. And actually, Michael Kornblith and his team built it from scratch.
My name is Michael Kornblith, and I'm the production designer on The Founder. As we began our first discussions about the concept for the film, the basic themes really emerged very, very quickly. Thematically, we have a great distinction between a pre-World War II America and a post-World War II America. The shapes of the architecture, the shapes of the automobiles, all those things just really speak to this great post-war optimism. And so that really kind of became my sketchbook, that became sort of my template. So we gathered sort of a variety of archival sources. I had blueprints, I had manuals, I had a lot of things to be working from, but also had the great good fortune that the actual store number 2 in Downey, California, that was built before Ray Kroc owned the franchise, has been able to maintain its original look for all these years. This image here became sort of our mother image in thinking about what we call the octagon, or what we called San Bernardino. Now this went through many, many iterations, from the hot dog stand to the barbecue stand to the burger stand, but we kind of had to land this one particularly in the time when we think that Kroc would have seen it. And so this became sort of our touchstone. This was our Rosetta Stone. As we were researching in the San Bernardino McDonald's Museum, we came across this one lonely image. Most of the pictures were of the building, of the McDonald's building, of a Speedy, but nobody really took pictures from what it looked like from looking inside the building, looking out. And we came across this image and immediately fell in love with it. And once we had chosen our location, the fact that we had this shell of a building behind us that could be converted or just basically scenic to feel the same was really another thing that just made this location such an unbelievable choice.
The great thing about Michael Kornblith, I mean, he's not just like, let me create the items, but it's like, let me create the world. Not only did he create this McDonald's from scratch, he had to make a kitchen that worked. It had to be the same as it was then. And we had to recreate the Speedy system. And it's not like there's a manual, like, here's how they made burgers back then. And there's really not that many people alive that could do it. So he had to recreate not just the restaurant, but how the people would work within the restaurant.
Welcome to our set of the original McDonald's in San Bernardino, California. So come on inside, I'd love to show you the kitchen. The simplicity of the menu is really part of a storytelling process where the McDonald brothers understanding that the majority of their revenue really came from only 3 products. It came from hamburgers, it came from French fries, and it came from Coca-Cola. Soft drinks were dispensed from this barrel, which was actually filled with ice at the time to keep the drinks cool. And the brothers also, one of the first menu items was this orange drink, which came from the fact that they were near an orange processing facility in San Bernardino, and they saw all these bruised oranges going to waste. And they were such frugal businessmen, they made a deal with the distributor to take all of the bruised oranges that were still very good, but just not presentable for produce, and juice them themselves and made the orange drink. And so this dispenser is something that you really see in a lot of the early photography. One of the things that's really changed very, very little in the last 60 years is sort of the basic components of the kitchen, and the French fries had always been over on this side of the restaurant. So as we saw it being chalked out on the tennis court, when the brothers were really trying to kind of come up with the best mechanized factory floor that they could make to do this, it seemed the French fries really wanted to live over on this side of the world. The sequence of events beginning with going through the extruder, going into the pre-soakers, was exactly sort of as it was done in reality. As we're doing our research, we had found this Lazy Susan idea, and I became obsessed with understanding kind of how it worked and also how to make it work for the motion picture. And so as the buns were being dressed, there were 2 dressers, and they would turn this incrementally to dress the bun. And then my favorite part of this is when the top buns were dressed and ready to be transferred to the grill, the entire apparatus moved forward so it was closer to the grill station. Again, no wasted energy, no wasted motion, everything really sort of detailed to the maximum efficiency and ergonomic version. As I was discussing the operation of the kitchen with John Lee Hancock, he wanted to see a finished, fully assembled product roll off an assembly line in the same way that a Model T Ford would have. And so we've created here what we affectionately call the burger slide, which enables the burgers to be completely finished and wrapped, and then we can follow its path sort of down kind of in a conveyor beltish sort of way where it joins the other finished products. So this is one of something that kind of deviates a little from the historic reality, but really kind of tells the story a little better. When Dick McDonald was designing the kitchen, they really needed a way of branding this. And the McDonald's brothers were way ahead of their time in understanding the relationship of signage to architecture. So basically the sign became the building, and the building became the brand. And so Speedy was developed by a concept artist and was sort of it was really kind of the proto symbol of the McDonald's franchise until the Golden Arches came around. I wanted to reserve this portion of the palette of the movie. The golden arches, the red and the white, are really pretty unique only to this. Nowhere else are there instances of these colors in the motion picture. And so I was able to explore what his house looks like, what his office looks like, what his world had looked like, clashed against what this vision of the future is going to look like. The way that we did this is this building was largely prefabricated in a construction warehouse space. Foundation footers were poured, a foundation deck apron was laid, and then the steel was attached, and then the pieces just came out and sort of snapped together like a big model airplane kit. And so when everybody kind of stops what they're doing and the cameras start coming out and people start finding that right witness point, yes, to see this thing aglow at night for the first time was really a sensational experience for me, and I think a sensational experience for everyone.
1, 2, 3.
So I want to start at the beginning with the story of the founder, because I think we can all admit that McDonald's has touched all of our lives in some way. So for the producers, I'm curious, how did the story of Ray Kroc find its way to you, and what made you initially see it as a movie?
About 12 years ago, I heard a song by Mark Knopfler called Boom Like That, and I was fascinated by the song. And I remembered as a kid this sort of being in McDonald's with one of my family members and seeing this bronze plaque that said Ray Kroc, founder of McDonald's, and there was just a cognitive dissonance that sort of stood with me, like how did a Ray Kroc create McDonald's? And I heard this song. Jeremy and I had started our company, and we had a conversation about it because I tried to option some books, and when we called the publisher basically said, call McDonald's. Like McDonald's had purchased the rights to these books and I think buried the authors in cement. So Jeremy's like, this is a great idea. We got to find a way to do it. And I was Googling late one night and found that they had, when they left McDonald's, they were going to start a motel chain like Motel 6 that was going to be way ahead of its time, like 20 years ahead of its time. So they actually had a piece of a motel in Massachusetts. I called the motel, said, hey, my name's Don Hanfield. I'm producing part of Jeremy Renner. Want to do a movie about McDonald's? Do they own a piece of this motel? And they're like, he's like, yeah, they do. As the night manager or something. He's like, I'll take your name and number and I'll see if they'll get back to you. And a day or two later, Jason French called me back and said, we've been waiting 50 years for someone to call and tell our story, and you're the first one who's found us. And he was just really excited and gracious, and that really just unlocked a treasure trove of information that they had. They had archival letters, dictaphone recordings of the Kroc family of Ray Kroc talking to the McDonald brothers and them sending that back and forth, and it just kind of launched from there.
And for the other producers, I'm curious, even before you got this trove of information from the French brothers, what made you see this as a movie, and what did you think the story would be?
Well, for our own part, when Don and Jeremy brought the idea over to us at Film Nation, we all kind of like had this meeting. We were thinking, why is the founder of McDonald's named Kroc? And that always kind of, there's a question, and the movie obviously answers it. But you think about something that has a large branding like McDonald's, and that's a big leap up when you're creating that pre-existing awareness. And as a producer, that's enticing. And it's just one of those. It's a movie about America, and it feels like a movie about capitalism. And as John Lee Hancock says, it's kind of like Death of a Salesman with a very different ending.
A happy ending, I guess. And Jeremy, what about for you?
Yeah, to me it was, for me, like, it was a movie that is already kind of, the story's already told itself, and I always look for, especially with Don, like, what is the the world that this story is told in. I feel like we tell the same sort of Greek mythological stories over and over again, and I think this is definitely one of them. But the world is really interesting, and it's a world that we already know. It's, it's McDonald's. It's kind of emblazoned all across the world, and so that made it kind of, okay, this needs to be on the big screen. And then I love stories where there's a lot of gray. And this couldn't be more gray in this movie when you have a hero that's flawed, which I love, and then you have an anti-heroes that are, you find sympathy, or you understand, or the reasons for their doing. So there's a lot of gray within that. It's not just black and white. And also to our writer and our directors, what they've done with not force-feeding any sort of particular value or moral or righteousness onto the audience. It just kind of spells it out. It's like, then you can kind of choose what you think about capitalism and morality and capitalism. And, that grayness is just sexy to me. I love it.
And I'm sorry, but I have to ask because you're a pretty good actor. So when you find a project like this, I mean, was it always going to be just as a producer? Was there a time you considered taking a role in it?
Well, I mean, I always consider playing every role in everything, but I never, considered the sense of me actually doing it. As far as like developing each character, and you want every character to be strong and not just be a device to tell the story. And that's sort of my part creatively in the output of the movie. I can't. That there's guys that are much better at that stuff than I am. Look at what we have here at this table, and so yeah. I'm so glad we got the guys we got.
So Jason, I'm surprised to hear that you hadn't gotten calls like these before. I mean, had your family, you'd never been approached over the years about telling a story about the McDonald's?
we had been approached by people who were interested in writing books, but no one that was ever interested in doing a movie. So the thought of actually getting the real story of McDonald's out on the big screen was something that was extremely enticing.
And Jason and Corey, I mean, how involved were you guys? Did you go down to the set? Was it surreal to see? I mean, I think you can all see how much he looks like Nick. It's a little crazy.
We did have a chance. We brought the whole family to visit the set, and it was surreal to actually see a movie being made. And to be involved with the project is just something we just could never imagine.
And so, where did you begin? Did you go to Robert to write the script, or did John come on board first? Or
We actually heard some pitch. Once we did sort of a graphical pitch book that kind of told the story that kind of helped entice agents and writers, and we heard pitches from a bunch of writers. And what was great about Rob Siegel, other than us being big fans of his work, was a lot of people pitched just a certain POV of the McDonald Brothers, and then Kroc comes in. And what Rob pitched that was really unique was Kroc, but from the McDonald Brothers POV. So it's sort of that character's journey, but from their perspective and the story that the McDonald Brothers experienced, and that just really kind of sparked us. And then he came up with a great pitch, and from there we connected with FilmNation, and we had another project with FilmNation. We think they're just great to work with, and the best in the business. And from there once we had a script, we were lucky to get John Lee Hancock and Michael Keaton.
So Robert, how did you come up with that idea for the pitch? I mean, you looked at the story and coming up with the idea to tell the story of Ray Kroc, but through the McDonald Brothers' eyes to some extent. Did that just hit you upon reading about it?
Well, I think this is a little awkward to say with the grandchildren of the brothers right here, but I just thought most of the pitches. Correct me if I'm wrong, Don, but I think most of the pitches were told really with the McDonald Brothers as the lead characters, and what I pitched was I just thought it should be told from the perspective, not from the perspective, but I thought Ray Kroc was our lead character. I just thought he was seemed like a far darker.
It's a much better idea, I think.
Well, I mean the models. When you look at movies like I don't mean to compare this to Citizen Kane. I actually think Citizen Kane is a better movie. No, that's not a knock again. You look at Charles Foster Kane, and in There Will Be Blood, Daniel Plainview, the Daniel Day-Lewis character, Social Network. They're all told from the perspective of the bad guy, and I just think that makes for a more interesting movie than people who are as kind and bright and wonderful as their grandfather. So I just thought that was the more interesting take.
And did you see him as a bad guy? I mean, I guess it's a little more complex than that.
Yeah, every time I watch it, I still don't. There are times I've watched the movie probably 6 times, 7 times now, and there are times I watch it. I guess it depends on my mood. Sometimes when I watch it, I hate him, and sometimes I watch it and I totally get why he did what he did. So I still actually, having written it and seen it many times, still don't quite know how to feel about him.
And John Lee, obviously you have brought real life stories to screen before. I don't know if that's a case of you find truth is stranger than fiction, if you're just drawn to biographical movies, but what attracted you to this?
First and foremost, you're not looking for anything necessarily true or not. A good story is a good story, but the first thing that attracted me was Rob's script, and I felt like that it was different than any script I'd ever read before, because I was actively pulling for a protagonist in the first half, and then going from feelings of ambivalence to head scratching to no, gasp, and I thought that was a really clever high wire act that Robert pulled off, and I thought that would make for a difficult movie to make, but I thought it was also an exciting movie to make.
And where did you even start in assembling this amazing cast? I mean, not only the actors here, but you have Linda Cardellini and Patrick Wilson and B.J. Novak. I mean, this is a remarkable ensemble.
How lucky am I? I begged a lot, and I look around and also with the other actors that aren't here and just go, man, it was so much fun. I mean, everybody is so talented, so professional, and in addition to that, they're all really awesome people. And so if you're waking up at 4:30 in the morning to go to work, it's really nice when you see faces you love.
For the actors, I'm curious, I mean, did you know the story of Ray Kroc or even the name Ray Kroc before the script came to you?
I knew a great deal about it, actually. I've read a lot of Eric Schlosser, Fast Food Nation, Michael Pollan, The Omnivore's Dilemma. I come from a farming family, so I'm very interested in how fast food, among other industries, has sort of destroyed the small American farmer. So I knew kind of the macro details of the story, but it was the personal, familial story of the McDonald Brothers that was an absolute revelation. And so, as somebody who considers myself a fan of small agriculture, at first I was nervous when I got the script. I said, "Is this going to be, is this going to be for the chicken factory or for the little guy?" And I was thrilled to then discover that the truth of the story is on the side of like, oh, maybe having 5,000 cattle on 10 acres is not a healthy thing for our country. I was then very excited to get involved, but it was not only the story of how the business began and how Kroc sort of appropriated it, but the details of how the brothers, with their sweat equity and elbow grease, tried all of these other businesses, or these hardworking, nice brothers finally struck on this brilliant idea. And it was, for me, the actual tennis court sequence. I was just, I felt like it suddenly was a Willy Wonka moment where you're like, holy shit, somebody actually thought this up at some point and got up on a ladder and yelled mustard.
What about for the rest of you? Were you familiar with Ray Kroc?
I was familiar with. I would say I probably fell somewhere in the middle range of most people, maybe 40 and up. I would guess who you think you know Ray Kroc till you've seen the movie. No, you think you know Ray Kroc, and if someone asks you, Ray Kroc, tell me, and you go, yeah, McDonald's, and you go, no, be more specific, and you probably go into the Jackie Gleason, because you don't really know what it is, and as I knew a little bit. I'm a curious person. I read a great deal, but I didn't know. I thought I got it. I didn't get it at all, and I just find the brothers and that story really, really, really interesting, and I just found the whole general story extraordinarily interesting, and it kept unfolding because Robert and John and everyone would keep supplying information, and it just kept getting more and more and more interesting.
And John and Laura?
I mean, I'd heard that he wasn't the actual creator of McDonald's, but what I didn't know about the McDonald's brothers was that their idea of bringing the concepts of Henry Ford's assembly line to the food industry were so revolutionary. I took it as kind of, it just was. I didn't think anybody ever thought it up. I didn't ever think anybody ever did it. It just was. It just was. And I think that the kind of desire to have something that you do, that you created, that is yours specifically, is so great in the movie, and it's a kind of an entrepreneurship that I think you can't help but admire, even at the same time it may have, as you say, had the ramifications that Nick pointed out in the way in which we eat and the way in which we view our food, and I think that the combination of that kind of Main Street kind of, I wonder if quality to the story, I did not have any idea about, and then also I did not know that the McDonald's Corporation was a real estate company. That had never occurred to me. So the kind of taking that Main Street idea and weaponizing it with a Wall Street business model that would make it so easily leverageable. It's a pretty amazing thing to see that, to watch that story go, wow, so that's how it happened, and then yikes, these are the ramifications. Pretty cool.
It changed culture beyond food. So we're a portable society, and when you stop and think that you have to hire a machinist to build this little assembly line. I mean, just think of that in and of itself, and then it led to
a portable society, a disposable society, and that's not overblowing this whole thing, and not to go on too long, but this is so interesting to talk to Nick about this, because part of the year I live on a, not by Montana standards, certainly not a large ranch, but I live on a ranch and I lease out my place to cattle, to a guy down the road who runs his cattle on it, and we rotate how we graze, because people don't realize what the impact has, not on the methane, but if you overgraze, environmentally it exponentially affects everything. And I don't think we ever talked about that really specifically. It's really, really interesting. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, because that's usually Nick's job, but sorry.
I'll jump in here.
Laura, what about you?
Well, everyone's spoken so beautifully about what they've known and the story itself. So I'll just add to it that the piece that interested me, which is probably the piece I knew in terms of Ray Kroc or McDonald's, was this question of the introduction of the filler. And I was fascinated that the film, pointed it out, but also this question of how did it turn from real food to, how we can make a fast buck and potentially poison people with that. I mean, what is that? And the subversive question, which interested me the most, which is this question of, can capitalism hold compassion? And what is that story? And so that moved me so much when John first spoke to me about it, and hearing all these amazing people were involved. And I just would love to add, because I thought it was so incredible. I got to see the film last night with my daughter, who's just turning 12, and to hear from her perspective, because I like to think it's politically subversive and a commentary on this question of, empathy versus corporations, and can there be a place for both? And I was talking about my favorite shot, which just brings me to tears, of these two gentlemen with their arms around each other watching the McDonald's section of their sign be removed. And I was talking about it, and when we got in the car, my daughter said, "Mom, when those brothers were holding each other at the end?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "That's how I felt after the farewell address."
Oh.
She's like, "Because we just don't know what's next."
Yeah.
And that was the film to me. And I just loved that for a 12-year-old, the details of the story, the point was she got, I think, what you all intended. And I was really moved by that. So thank you for letting me be a mere part of it, because that is beautiful. Congratulations to asking that larger question.
I mean, Ray is a very complicated character, but there are some things to admire about him. And I'm curious how you all sort of felt about Ray Kroc, and if those feelings changed while making the movie.
I knew Ray Kroc kind of the way that Michael was talking about as a person. I knew that he had, been I thought of him as the founder, even though I knew that there were the brothers before him. And I also knew that he had owned, the Padres. He had created the San Diego Padres. That was the extent. And I also knew that after his death, particularly, his wife gave away massive amounts of money, and I would hear her name on National Public Radio all the time. So that was my, personal relationship with it. But, knowing the story a little bit and seeing the things that are absolutely bedrock, admirable American traits of entrepreneurship, of persistence, of salesmanship, of a sense of seeing something for how far it can go, of vision. All of those things are incredibly attractive. And what I love about the way the movie unfolds, and it was particularly fun to watch it last night, was how there's a moment when he could tell the truth about the origin of the company, and you might not feel so badly about what happens if he could just give somebody else credit. If he could just be humble enough to go, there were these two brothers who had this amazing idea, and I figured out a way how to make it on every street in America with this other guy's help. And he could have said any of those things. But at the moment every moment that he has an opportunity to tell the truth, he can't do it because he needs to be the guy. And I also love there's a moment in the story where, and it's beautifully directed and beautifully written and beautifully acted, where you watch him kind of digest the lie over time, and it becomes the truth to him. And that is very indicative of where we are right now, which is what we're told is, in some ways, to many of us, more important than the actual truth. And we just want to believe the easy part of what's said, and not the hard parts. And I include myself in that. I don't want to have to deal with the hard parts. I don't want to have to deal with the fact that people are destroyed, or land is destroyed. I really, really like Egg McMuffins, and that's where my dilemma is.
You should be reminded too that when Ray met the brothers, he was in his 50s, and at that time in the 50s, this is a milkshake machine salesman who went in and saw the future, and he had already reached a point in his life, and reached a set in his life to be able to break out of that. Just kind of shows the sheer ambition and determination, and I guess it's, as he says in the movie, persistence that he had just in him. And I think most Americans have that. I think that's something that we've always heard about and have been taught in a lot of ways to achieve the American dream. And I think if you look at Ray, if there's an admirable quality, if anything, the man was, my God, he was persistent and determined to get to a better place.
And and quite obviously a very, very, very hard worker, which you have to admire and we love. And you have to remember, coming off of World War II, America was in a place where we kicked ass, we won the war, we won it, we deserve it, and we want it now. And I think everybody was thinking, now is my time, because the country was. We were thriving, and it was like Ray in his 50s at that point said, when do I get to ring the bell? And I think he's driven, and that's something I relate to. I get that. And then when Michael's in the lot and he's put his entire financial resources on the line without telling Ethel, but and says one time, just be right one time. I relate to that guy heavily, and and it's there for that reason as well. So it's so that you can be somewhat conflicted. I think Don pointed out something really interesting, which is kind of always intended it, because I thought there were a couple different movies that would be really boring, and one was if it were a true Horatio Alger, Ray Kroc succeeds and we all leave the theater clapping movie. The other would be a corporate takedown of McDonald's and Ray Kroc back. Those are both really, really boring movies. The one that's more interesting is and I'm using this what Don said, is that it's a little more of a Rorschach test for the viewer in terms of what you bring to this experience.
I want to jump in about the brothers for a second, and I want to kind of fight for the view of success that they were. Two kids from New Hampshire travel across the country together, become truck drivers, save money, lose everything. Start another business, scrounge, get the money together, get this thing to become a successful business. They were successful businessmen. And then they decide, can't we do it all better? They ask the question, can't we do all of what we're doing better? Solve the problem and create something brand new and successfully become millionaires in their lifetime from nothing after losing everything in the Depression 30 years before. That's a success story. And the loss that they incurred is partly due to the mechanization, the weaponization of capitalism that Ray Kroc represents, right? Because $1 million isn't enough. Hundreds of millions make you a success. That's the part that I think we've lost track of.
I hear this is, I did some press early on in Europe. I was over there working, and I knocked off a little press for the movie. And I'm hearing it, I heard it there, and I heard it from a few journalists from outside the U.S. yesterday, and this morning on the phone, they bring it up, and it's interesting that the U.S. journalists don't bring this up, and that is the issue of the American dream. And this is fascinating to me, because unless I miss something, there's this, I mean, we could go on and on about consumerism and waste and you know, greed, et cetera, but their perception, or what they think the American dream is, and maybe let me be a little more specific and not maybe make such generalization. They refer that when they talk about the American dream, they do it in relation to billions and mansions, and I'm going to make the assumption, you know, an extravagant lifestyle with private jets and owning islands and everything. And that's fascinating to me that they think, because the American dream, unless I missed something here, was in its simplest form, work hard enough, you know, there will be a job available and you can buy a house and you can have a car to get you back and forth from work where you can afford that house, and you'll have a couple of kids who can attend a good school, and you get a vacation maybe, you know, and maybe a second car. Unless I miss something, that's, but by the way, that ain't a bad thing, you know, and I think that's what it was. That's not what the perception is. It's this other thing that is kind of an, I don't want to say an ugly thing, because I think everybody, I got no problem with billionaires, especially billionaires like Bill Gates, who do the things that they do, or my friend Yvonne Chouinard I keep referring to, or pick one. There's a bunch of them out there, you know. But this perception that that's what it is, that's what people think it is, and am I nuts? I mean, that's not what the idea was.
You know, something that early on was what was so compelling about this story was that I always thought it was more about capitalism than fast food, and the McDonald brothers represent what I called sustainable capitalism, which is like, have a great product, take care of your employees, take care of, you know, and Ray Kroc represented the other side of capitalism, which was like, cut down every truffle of tree in the forest, make as much as you can, expand as far as possible. And then it broke down even further in the sense of an emotional conflict, where the brothers, I felt like, were driven by love for each other, love for their product, love for their employees, and Ray Kroc was driven by fear, which is like fear of not being a success, fear of being poor, fear of not being, you know, it's just these two sort of things were battling for the soul of American capitalism, and ultimately Ray Kroc's version won, and I think we see that throughout the fabric of our society right now, and throughout the fabric of American commerce and American capitalism.
I guess we should ask Jason and Corey how they felt, and if those feelings changed.
And I feel like there was a very amazing balance of that gray, where you know, there's certain things that drive people to just get what they feel that they need, and I'm glad that didn't get lost, and you know, I'm glad also that it didn't get lost what motivated, you know, Papa and his brother to do what they did, and you know, I'm glad that story was told in the way that it was, and I think that the actors did an amazing job capturing, you know, the essence of what these people in the movie were about.
I just thought I'd love to add to, you know, the beauty of watching a movie that all these people came together to make. When I was watching it last night, is the other themes or the other undercurrents of story that are invented, and with this writing and filmmaking and these three incredible performances, one of the things that struck me similarly to Scorsese's film Silence this year is both films really hold this theme of this other question, which we're talking around as well, which is it enough just to know what you've accomplished? Or do you need the world to know? And both, like in that film, which are two men with very different points of view, these two themes resonated so powerfully. And the last speech to himself that you're preparing as Michael's acting it, to see that moment, that glimmer in this man's eye that he might have a conscience or a remorse, and then he's kind of over it, is like one of the most amazing things I've ever seen an actor do. It's hysterical and devastating at the same moment, because you're just hoping there's empathy, but you never think that maybe there is a glimmer of empathy and then quickly overcome. Seems more terrifying than someone who would never have it at all. But you know, the question that I'm just so thrilled to see in a movie is this question you so beautifully navigated, and I'm amazed by it. That, you know, even for myself, I'm like, this is so unjust. Your family should, oh, how are we not all suing now to get this 1%? This is insane. As opposed to this extraordinary legacy that your grandfather and these men, you know, invented this unbelievable new model. And your family knows that. And how we always need more and more followers and more everything. It's just, it's terrifying to consider. And I'm really grateful for the movie to ask that.
I do want to open up to the audience for questions. Let's just start in the front row here.
You brought up a very important topic of the quality that the McDonald Brothers started. That same quality we see resonating through your work, John Lee, and the triumvirate of your cinematographer, John, your production designer, Michael, and your costumer, Daniel. Can you talk about that beautiful marriage and how it came to fruition in this film, particularly John's dazzling camera work within the original McDonald's?
John's ears are burning somewhere right now. He's probably going to burst through the door and say, "Dazzling? Did I hear dazzling?" No, it's a great team, and the more you work on things, and we all have similar mindsets about things, and so the more we talk about them, the more we prep, it makes a very tight schedule like this go more smoothly. And you can also ask the really important questions when you're in production, as opposed to, we didn't count on this wall being here, it's going to take 2 hours to move it. Those kind of things don't happen. Plus, they're all artists, and first and foremost, they are storytellers. When you're talking to Daniel Orlandi about a costume, it's not just, well, this is pretty, or this is period, and this is cool. It is like, this feels like it would be in her closet, and I can picture her buying it. And I think that resonates with actors as well when you get that kind of support. And with Michael, I mean, he did, in terms of physical production, the heavy lifting on this, having to build on a limited budget 2 different standalone McDonald's that were not only sets, but kitchens that we cooked in. And the difficulty of that with gimbaled windows and removable glass and building permits and everything else was kind of astounding. And every day you would see him, and he had lost more hair, it seemed. But he always had a smile on his face and always said, this is the good stuff.
And he ingeniously turned those 2 McDonald's into 20 McDonald's, right?
Yeah. Well, we had a plan for the 1 Golden Arches to become many Golden Arches, and we said, what can we do besides CG background? And the thing we could do was we would choose, and this goes to John Schwartzman, we would choose different axes to shoot on because it looks different from every different side. And so we used multiple axes for those things, and in addition to that, changed the parking plan because all the McDonald's parking wasn't the same. So sometimes it would be this way, sometimes it would be this way, sometimes it would be along the side, and just parking cars in a different configuration helped cheat the eye a little bit so that you could get away with the background. But John is a storyteller as well. It's all about character. And so we're constantly reminding each other what the story is, what the character wants to do and is doing, and that's a great place to come from. Because nobody's trying to show off, everybody's trying to serve the story. And I think that, I mean, all these actors, I think, would say the same thing about these guys, that they're teammates.
I always said that, you know, that's what you learn pretty early when you start making a movie. You know, at first you think, well, that's that person's department, this person wants to do their thing, and you know, that's how that's going to work. I don't want to say it's rare, but it's actually not rare. There are people who think in terms of what's the story, what's my job, how do I move the story along, and man, these guys are like the quintessential example of that.
Be great.
Question for Laura. There's that wonderful moment with your character where she realized she's being asked to be a true business partner to Ray, and then a couple of moments later, it's being dismissed. Can you talk about that? That was wonderful.
Is this the working one? Yeah. Well, I loved that too. You know, given in the writing and directing the idea to propose this partnership. You know, he had a fever of this new idea, and I think that you know, one of the interesting things about having a relationship in a film where you have very specific and limited time to tell an entire story, not just about the couple, but but really to serve what we want to learn about Ray. The challenge there was to see what it's like personally to live in the mania or the fever of great ideas that never find themselves. So hopefully, I think one of the goals was that through her eyes, you see how many rides they've been through of another great idea that falls short or another promise. And particularly, I think in a 50s relationship, to have, you know, the gauntlet offered to you as a wife of, now I'm going to bring you in. I see you as my partner, my best friend. You know, it's like when you ask people what they found attractive about Ray Kroc or what they liked, you know, from the perspective of the woman who fell in love with him first, you know, it's the sexiness of a dreamer, and until it hurts too much. And so I think that's hopefully what I, you know, tried to support, is what that feels like to go on that ride of a dreamer when you become the victim of their dreams that last for about 10 minutes, and then they're on to the next. And if you're not part of the next one, you're going to get left behind. And character over.
He tried to.
She did.
He actually in real life tried to hire her. She complained that you know, you're not spending enough time with me, and he said, well, just then come work for me. It's kind of dark.
And she'll be embarrassed by this or not, or she'll gloat. I'll leave it to her. But it's hard to find somebody who finds, man, I've said this about her, and if somebody was a journalist was saying, praising her, this woman to my right as well yesterday. You have to search hard to find somebody who can find those little pockets and that little, I always say, you know, paint with one of those little fine hair brushes, you know, two or three little, you know, badger hairs on your brush. She finds those really weird little, funny little balancing points, because she had tough detail and not coming off as the shrew, you know, and the whiner, you know, and that would be the easy way to go. And it's hard to pull off what she does. I've been a fan for a long time, and she just, man, transitions and little fine little spots. It's outstanding.
Well, I don't know about you guys. I really want a Big Mac. So I want to thank you so much for being here today. Congratulations to you guys on a great movie. Thank you so much.